Today we got a video by Abyssoft. Nope, my voice did not do that. That was your mind. All right. And so it took 17 years to break this Mario Kart Wii track. I love Abyssoft. Abyssoft does like a ton of speedrun content. So we're going to leave that a like immediately. That's the first thing that I want to do. But let's begin. We have here, hopefully sound's going to be okay. I think we're good. Let me go start.
Shortcuts and Mario Kart Wii go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, peanut butter jelly.
If the peanut butter was made entirely of raw peanuts, because ultra shortcuts are hard. So hard, in fact, that it took years after some of them were discovered for players to hit them. Take the ultra shortcut on Koopa Cape, for instance. Found in 2019, it wouldn't be hit by a player until 2021, and Rainbow Road is even more insane.
Okay, so do they test them before they do them?
It wouldn't be hit by a player until 2021, a full 5 years after it was found. This was the theme for almost every ultra shortcut. It didn't matter when it was found.
Dude, this is so cool, bro.
After enough time,
look at them just like glitching through the walls, man.
And as the years passed, the number of unhit ultra shortcuts was reduced to 1. DS Desert Hills.
Okay, so there's one that people haven't done so recently.
Found on this track, break down the technical parts, and see what it took for a human to hit what is likely the final ultra shortcut in Mario Kart Wii history. Something Mario Kart.
I tried to hit pause. Okay, no. What I want to say is, I think that's really cool, man. I like how Anyways, I enjoy that they are tasking, and then they're like, "Could I do it? Can I do it too?" And then they all try to frame perfect that. I always find glitches. I find glitches all the time on accident in video games in general. But you always find glitches in Nintendo games. Crazy. Yeah, it's almost something small, but it's always really reality breaking. Yes. I just did a reaction on Ocarina of Time Brawl Speedrun. Like the trial, like the demo. And they beat the demo. And that thing, nuts. People like found out like game code and like how to warp to the credits and all this crazy stuff just from the hexadecimals and all the wild crap. And here they're just going through walls and stuff. And like I said, I kind of think it's cool that they're using tasks and like AI and such to find out, go into this code to get these glitches out. But I also find it kind of like sad at the same time. I mentioned this before because it's like, bro, man, we could have found that, but it probably would have taken like 100 years, 20 years to like find this. So that's why task AI and all that stuff is very helpful. But I think it's cool that they see the AI, they see the task do it, and then they say, "Can I do that?" Their big caveman brain says, "I will be pixel perfect." And then when they finally do it, like a lot of times they think it's not possible, and then they do.
The final ultra shortcut in Mario Kart Wii history. Something Mario Kart and other speedruns have in common is clipping out of bounds.
There's the clips.
You may have heard of the cheat code no clip that was popularized in the 90s.
That's funny to say about no clip.
Exploration much easier.
Yeah, you just hit the toad.
This video's sponsor, Shadow Alley Press, has a...
You find tasks interesting only in the sense that it can sometimes achieve stuff a person realistically couldn't. Yeah. And then when people do it, I'm like, damn!
Book about a man with a hangover that no-clipped into the back rooms.
That's so funny.
You heard that right. Discount Dan is a book series where the title character Dan found his way into the back rooms.
He knows how to no-clip?
They're an extra-dimensional dungeon with 999 floors he has to navigate and survive if he wants to find his way home. The setting is a mix of pop culture with familiar gaming references, such as stat windows and descriptions appearing from the main character whenever he comes across a new
I might have to buy this book.
One of my personal
I might have to do a reading.
The Magic Slammer
Can we have a book club?
Fad Pogs that can shield the user from most forms of damage.
Okay.
And my favorite part has been Dan experiencing and rationalizing his first time.
Dude, this is an ad. This is like a goated integration.
If you want to jump into the world of Discount Dan, go to the link in the description and order the first 2 books, Discount Dan and Cul-de-sac Carnage, on Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. And with that, let's get back to the video.
There's no way, bro. Look at the spotted dog, the blue Dalmatian. Abyssoft goaded for that. I can't even hate. That's such a good integration. He's like, oh, no clipping. That's going to be used a lot in this speedrun. But also, did you know there's this book on bone hurting juice? Yeah. Yeah, hold up. Can we go back? Can we like read some of the book here? Yusifada Sigala. Wait, masochist in training. It says on the top. Hold up. You suffered a single attack that reduced your health by more than 90%. Okay, hold up. I'm gonna not do that. I'd ask if you're okay, but there's no way that you're okay. I'm gonna give you a reward, but I feel conflicted about it, since I don't want to positively reinforce this type of bad behavior. And your reward is 4 copper medic. You get a loot token, 1 silver medic loot token, research achievement unlocked, my first elixir. Bro, this he had a hard day in the office. This is reading like a right now. This is reading like a what's it called? Oh my gosh, like an infomercial. So you had a hard day in the office and suffered a catastrophic crippling blow that has left you tiptoeing on the line between life and death. Just another average Tuesday in Newfoundland. Crack the fridge and pull out a refreshing medical grade Zima. The #1 bone healing juice on the market. Guaranteed to make your insides feel like what do they feel like? Glimflam.
Main character.
Glimflam. Glimflam.
Whenever he comes across a new item.
Reward the delicious, refreshing, lightly carbonated taste of Zima. It is its own reward. Am I right?
One of my personal favorite items is the Magic Slammer from the 90s fad Pogs.
Okay.
That can shield rash
Okay,
to the link in
we
the
watched that.
description
But
and order the...
that's so great. I love that. That's amazing. Solid integration. I'm not even mad.
Dan and
I'm not gonna lie. It's probably one of the first times I've seen an ad where I'm like,
let's get back
I'm actually kind of interested. It kind of works.
July of 2019
that's amazing.
was a huge month for Mario Kart.
And also, I think that really was an infomercial. When I read that, I was like, this reads like an infomercial. And it looks like it was. So you know what? They did a good job writing that.
As 3 new Ultra shortcuts were discovered.
Right. We're here for Mario Kart.
Was on
We're not here for
Bowser's
books
Castle,
and ads.
whereby using a technique called a wall clip, you jump behind the finish line. Then, after going out of bounds a second
I find it funny that you like purposely fall off.
You've made progress around the entire track. The next was on Shy Guy Beach,
Going
where
around?
by jumping off a bomb to go out of bounds, you could once again trick the game into thinking you'd went around the entire track.
So
the
you tricked the game into thinking you went around?
On Koopa Cape, but the setup was unlike any of the others, as it involved complicated physics.
This stuff's so cool, bro.
But
for like no reason.
It required the same thing as the other two, going out of bounds and tricking the game into giving you credit for a full
I wanted to move the.
This was a huge amount of discoveries in a short amount of time, and all of them would be hit by players within a couple of years of the skips being posted. But these tracks weren't the only ones having extensive research carried out
just so you can see the lap in the time.
During the Ultra Shortcut Revolution, Retro Desert Hills was looked into as well, as it already had a
so cool, bro.
skip players had been
is his name Glitch J? A.
using since 2014.
And he's using Funky Kong?
It involved cutting out the
I wonder if there's a reason why he's using Funky Kong. In these games, was there like weight and stuff?
first turn of the race by shrooming into the wall to get a wall clip and jumping across the water.
No, there wasn't,
which
right?
saves about 2 seconds.
Not on these ones.
However, this was a shortcut, and
they did that later. I think there was like 7 and up.
Ultra shortcut, and it's time we took a closer look at
what
an ultra shortcut
what is this? The Wii, right?
actually is. The shortcut we just looked at works because you're only skipping regular checkpoints.
Okay.
If it skipped a key checkpoint, the lap wouldn't count.
Nice.
Around the track.
So you can't skip checkpoints.
What's a key checkpoint? If you look at any track in Mario Kart Wii,
this is why I love Abyssoft too. This is another reason why I love Abyssoft. Like, even if you don't know speedrunning, you don't know the game, like, you learn, and he shows like perfectly good diagrams, and his explanations are always just like so pristine that I'm like, yeah, you know, I get it. Sometimes I even retain the information for no reason.
Decide where to place you when you go out of bounds.
Well, that's 3D map. Like, that's cool.
Checkpoints, like the ones you see here in pink, are called key checkpoints and serve an important purpose for lap progression.
The fact that like speedrunners have to know all this stuff too is nuts.
The game keeps track of which one you've driven through, updating it as you progress through them in succession.
So this is how Mario Kart works.
Only being given if you cross the finish line, while your key checkpoint value is equal to the last key checkpoint on the map. This means that if you drive through key checkpoint 1, but skip key checkpoint 2, then drive the entire track, you won't get credit for a lap since the game sees you as only having driven through key checkpoint 1.
So you have to go through these checkpoints.
The only way it will update you to key checkpoint 3 is if your previous key checkpoint value is 2 when you enter 3. But why is this the case? When you're inside of a key checkpoint box, the only key checkpoints loaded into memory are the one you're in, the previous one, and the next one on the track, with the others being
so the others don't count.
When you drive
that's interesting.
The game executes the update code.
Dude, how do people find this out, man?
1 to key checkpoint 2
1,
has
2.
the game turn off key checkpoint 0 and turn
That's
on
so,
key checkpoint 3.
That's
when
so
you start
cool.
a race, the only key checkpoints loaded
Okay,
are
so technically
0,
you could like turn
at the
around.
Finish line, number 1, and the final key checkpoint on the course, which is typically close to the end of the track.
Yeah, so
the
like
way
you
an ultra short
turn around. I know people do that.
Exploiting this system at the start of a race.
Imagine they're gonna go back.
Bounds, then
yeah.
entering into the final key checkpoint.
Out of bounds and go around.
The finish line. The game can be tricked into thinking
you went all the way around.
Track. The reason you need to go out of bounds is because the game
it knows that you went upward. Yeah, it knows you went backwards
to prevent cheating laps. In fact, you can't touch the final.
I like how I figured out what the heck it was. Just
checkpoint box at all when out of bounds.
That's so cool.
The lap won't count. But if you manage to go from the start to the second checkpoint box, you can
from the last checkpoint box.
Why this works is because the final key checkpoint is loaded in memory.
Dude, just cheating these checkpoint boxes is so funny.
Avoiding the final regular checkpoint box.
Like this is like truly game breaking too. This is what you're talking about when you're like, I like Nintendo glitches because they're just reality breaking. Like this is totally reality breaking.
Checkpoint. So when you cross the finish line, it awards you a lap. This is the basis for every ultra shortcut.
Like, look at that, man.
And is what separates them from regular shortcuts.
They're just like jumping through like that.
Some of a lap.
That's crazy.
An ultra shortcut can skip the majority of a lap.
Boom,
with
boom,
some
boom.
exceptions.
And then you see like the ghosts do it too, which is hilarious.
Discovery. In July of 2019, 3 ultra shortcuts.
Yeah, these guys know what's up.
And a tasser named CF was looking into one on Retro Desert
tasser.
Hills, which had
They're called tassers.
To begin, you drive around the first corner. Then, as you approach the second turn, you'd instead drive off the track and use a mushroom to get some air.
Drive off the track, mushroom.
Bounce off the red
railing.
More air.
Gotcha.
However, the trick isn't finished yet.
So do you break the skybox?
You need to angle yourself so that you
head for this scene. Do you break the skybox
to perform an out-of-bounds bounce, or oob bounce for short.
Boob?
CF posted an
Boob
image
bounce?
showing how close he was to reaching the slope, and he wasn't far off. In fact,
there's a lot of universal language like the way checkpoints are handled for scripting. Yeah, that as well. That's true too. Like I said. But so, I just like the way Abyssoft explains everything too, because it makes things very simple. Sometimes I feel like he really does break it down for the simpletons
what he was
like
trying
me.
To do, let's look at how bounces work in Mario Kart Wii. Bounces in Mario Kart Wii function much like they do in the real world.
There we go.
The higher you drop an object from,
but yeah, no, for sure. I know Source Engine uses a lot of these terms.
Have suspension physics built into them. When you land,
you gotta have to, because if you're moving job to job, you know, as a game dev, you're gonna want to know like similar lingo.
Height, the more displacement occurs,
so that's understandable.
Which results in a rebound effect that gives you some upward air. And if you press the hop button when bouncing, you'll get even more height with certain vehicles. However,
that's
out of bounds
okay, so there's a reason.
Different.
There's a reason why they're picking what they're picking.
There's an added restriction, as
that's
the
what I was wondering.
Out of bounds detection makes getting an oob bounce very difficult. When you go out of bounds, you have a total of 4 frames.
Yeah, because it knows.
Recognizes you as being off the track and calls Lackey to come and get you. However, it's a bit more complicated.
So you definitely need to break something.
You don't actually have to touch an out-of-bounds surface to be marked out of bounds, as oob surfaces have a proximity check of about 100 units, which means all that's required is being near it for 4 frames, and the game will call Lackey to retrieve you.
So you don't have to be in it.
That to escape the proximity check without being marked out of bounds, you'll need a certain velocity, which we can call the escape velocity.
Dude, a lot of games have that too, where if you just like outspeed it, like, and I think that's really funny. Like, I think Halo has something like that as well, where if you just like outspeed it, you just bust through the dang barrier.
And because of this, flat surfaces are impossible
like
to get
you break the kill barrier because you're going so fast. You
can't get enough speed to enter and leave the proximity check fast enough. But sloped surfaces are an exception.
Oh, man.
By landing on the edge between 2 slopes, you can reduce the time you spend in the out-of-bounds check.
Like, because you have to hit like a specific spot then, huh?
Is more perpendicular to the oob section after
got it.
And since the distance
I'm
is
just
shorter,
so interested in this stuff, bro.
The escape velocity
I love this stuff.
To pass through it. After CF looked into oob bounces, things went quiet on Desert Hills for about
how did they do this? I genuinely am curious
to get enough distance to make
I'm just like very engraved now.
But in 2020, he had a funny idea. You might be able to achieve this skip without an oob bounce by driving upside down.
What did I just hear? Driving upside down. This sounds reality breaking. This sounds nuts. This sounds crazy, but it might just work.
Collision for vehicles works differently when you're upside down. In fact, because the out-of-bounds
how do you go upside down, though?
On the bottom
the same Mario Kart 8. How do you go upside down?
Of your vehicle to determine if you're out of bounds. By turning upside down, you can avoid the detection altogether. However, getting upside down isn't easy.
From the bottom of the cart.
Under normal circumstances, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How do you do that?
Doesn't mean much to tassers as they have total control, so they get into a state known as barrel roll collision. For a reason we don't need to get into, if you make contact with the edge of the lake on desert hills, you get barrel roll collision applied to your vehicle, and weird things happen while under this effect. Collision. The most important for us being that if you wheelie repeatedly, you'll turn yourself upside down. So CF tried this with the goal of navigating out of bounds
so you go past the
Ultra. Unfortunately, one of the drawbacks to barrel roll collision and being upside down are that you don't have much traction or control when trying to steer.
So then you could just flip.
Due to the slopes in the off-road section, all of CF's attempts ended with the cart righting itself and being picked up by Lackey 2. With this theory shot down, things once again went quiet for another year. But
see, that's the thing that's crazy to me as well. Like, in a lot of these stories, it's always like, oh, well, things were quiet for a year. Or like, it took 5 years for this to happen. It took 20 years for this to be broken. It took, like, this is the stuff where I'm like, holy crap. And that's what I'm saying when I'm like, I guarantee a lot of people just feel super omega accomplished, especially when they do something that, like, they saw Tass do, and they're like, it's impossible. Human can't do it. And then they do it. And that has happened so many times. And another big thing, too, like, for instance, the Tetris kill screen. When that kid did that, that was history. Like, a lot of the stuff is just history in the making. And, yeah, obviously, probably to the normal person, like, but to speedrunning community, holy yeah.
In February of 2021, EJ will be looking into optimizing the Koopa Cape Ultra shortcut when he made a literal groundbreaking discovery.
Groundbreaking, literal.
Part of this Ultra shortcut has you land out of bounds. I used to, right, boss? I used to. And to EJ's surprise, when he landed,
is that showing like the
oob bounce on a completely flat surface, something previously thought impossible. So, what was going on? At a basic level, Newton's third law was at play.
What is dude talking about Isaac Newton?
For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
I swear. Hold on. Hold on. Give me a moment. One second. Okay, good. All right. Okay, cool. We cool? We good? All right, you guys ready? You ready for this? You ready for this? All right, just give me like one more second. One more. Apple. Bonk. That's not very funny, but bonk. That's how we found it out. We're learning today. Yeah, did you guys know an apple fell on his head? Wow.
If players fell from a large enough height, they could get it.
Okay, I was hoping he was going to have an apple bit.
Enough upward force upon hitting the ground to achieve escape velocity. But this is only part of the answer.
Brain cell. Brain cell.
Velocity. In addition, you also need the vehicle to be in a precise position, which EJ just happened to have the bike in when he discovered this.
This is what I'm saying, though. People thought this was impossible.
Never would have been discovered.
Like, does this mean that, like, TAS never did that either? So then they're gonna, like, probably try to implement that into TAS runs? This is what I'm saying, too. Sometimes the human, like, glitch breaker just comes out and they do things that were thought impossible. This is, like, again, to the point I was talking about before. It's like, what? Like, huh? Like, this is very reminiscent to me to, like, the Jeff the Killer thing, because people are trying to find the original photo, right? And people thought that it originated in the 2008 story, but it turns out there's, like, Japanese forums where the photo was found in, like, 2005 and possibly even before then. Like, so, like, a lot of times people think things and then they just have a big discovery and they're like, that's impossible. What? It happened. What?
With this figured out,
this is speedrunning in a nutshell.
Hills, and CF spent a lot of time trying to get a bounce, but despite the new discovery, an oob bounce remained out of reach. After trying different bikes didn't yield an oob bounce, a tasser named Charlie tried the upside down method with a Kart due to its hitbox being more stable.
Okay,
while
so
upside
Kart
down.
is more stable than
even
makes sense.
Didn't help with climbing the slopes.
Look at that bounce.
But later in the day,
look at that bounce.
EJ had another idea.
What they got
Using
now?
the shooting star bike, EJ tried to get an oob bounce, and to everyone's surprise, it worked. You might be wondering why nobody tried this bike before, and the answer is it's an outside drifting bike, which uses a different drift mechanic than inside drifting bikes. Outside bikes have a drift angle that
what the fuck?
is pointed away from the direction your bike is facing, similar to a kart. And for some reason, Nintendo made outside drifting bikes much slower than inside drifting ones.
I had no idea that there were different drifting mechanics on different bikes or like any... Dude, what? Wait, is this like a well-known thing? Or is this like a speedrunner like only knowing thing? Because holy crap, that's really funny. Because this is like an old Mario Kart game. Meaning like there was no stats really, like I thought, but maybe they were, but they just didn't show them?
So they're never used for world records. Despite this drawback, there are two reasons outside drifting bikes are
so they're using bikes that were never used for a world record. That's interesting.
Is because when you hop with one, the game snaps its pitch back.
Hold on. One more thing. Okay, I'm looking at the Funky Kong on the bike, and I'm just thinking about one thing right now. Excuse me. Let me put this on screen real quick. We're going to take a quick little detour. You may have heard a little bit of it, but quick little detour, all right? Quick little detour. You gonna excuse me? ASMR roleplay. Okay. Funky Kong. This is the best. It's bodacious. Hey, dude.
How's it hanging?
Dude, this is like the best thing I've ever watched. All right. And the reason why the biker makes me think of that is because of the...
Hoo-wow. Hoo-hoo-ha-how.
Hoo-hoo-ha-how. Bodacious.
Roo-how-ha.
Where's the bodacious? You can tell I like this video already.
Whoa.
Bodacious. 10 years ago, 1.1 million views.
Yeah.
Like, what the... What does he say, bodacious?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the bodacious. The comments are turned off. Damn it, I'll never know.
Get away from all that bogusness sometimes.
Oh, here we go. This is the beginning. Watch this.
Hey, dude.
How's it hanging? Gives you a ride home from the airport, dude. Well, I don't know why somebody made this.
Bodacious.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed to hear. Bodacious. That's my favorite. Honestly, I think that's why the video went big, by the way. Dude said bodacious. All right, anyway.
To neutral very fast.
My bad.
Whereas with an inside drifting bike, it interpolates the bike
it is cinema, isn't it?
over a larger number of frames.
I don't know if you knew about that, Raid Boss, but yeah, that's one of my favorite videos.
Are further away.
I think I showed that to Barry at one point, and then she did show it. So she showed it on stream at one point. That was funny.
The hitbox is already further away from the proximity check than other bikes, which reduces the time spent inside of it. For outside drifting bikes, this means when you hop on flat ground that's out of bounds, your bike gets snapped back to neutral very quickly, which also means it pulls away from the proximity check faster, helping it reach escape velocity
so like it has like a slight...
With this knowledge, a tasser named
there's a slight quicker bounce. Got it.
Shortcut by setting the speed at 200 cc's, and it worked. So with the theory proven, other taskers started exploring it on 150 cc's in an attempt to hit it without
the 150 cc.
Justin was the first to satisfy all but one requirement of the Ultra, as he got the bounce off the red pole, and oob bounce didn't cross the finish line
I'm just saying, I can't look at Funky Kong and a motorcycle and not think about that. That's all I'm saying.
Checkpoint. The only thing he was missing was more
quick little detour, but I think it was well worth.
An hour.
Should I make that a new reaction? Should I react to the ASMR? Maybe I will.
Justin's task, Charlie and
maybe that'll be the next one.
Even closer, and
the whole thing.
After this, they created the complete package, proving that this ultra shortcut was legit.
I'm not gonna do that, but that'd be funny.
All that was left was for a human to hit it, and one player was ready to rise to the challenge. 117 James wasn't a...
That's my lucky number, right? Dude, this guy must be a Halo fan, dude. 117. Look at Funky Kong. You know, sometimes I wonder if the reason why they're picking Funky Kong and the motorcycle is because they know of that video. They know of the meme. I mean, it's got 1.1 million views. Do you think possibly maybe that the reason why they're they're Funky Kong and they're on the motorcycle is because of the video, or is it for the speedrunning? Is it for the speedrunning or is it for the meme? That's all I'm asking.
Well-known Mario Kart Wii player, but when it came to the Retro Desert Hills Ultra shortcut, he was insanely committed to pulling it off. And using the task as a guide, he created a setup that would be human viable, but it wasn't easy. On April 22nd of 2023, he'd get his first oob bounce, which made him realize something. You needed to be incredibly lucky to get an oob bounce. If you're wondering just how lucky you needed to be, from April to the end of September,
though, too, it looks like.
Only get a total of 50
it looks like they're not fully clearing
every 3 days, but this rate of
one every 3 days is crazy.
So he re-examined the task and noticed that before the oob bounce, it
looked at the task
dive inputs. So he added an input just before the bounce for better alignment. By November,
that's what I'm saying. They need a better angle.
A total of 5.
Looks like he figured it out looking at tasks, though.
With the 5th being incredibly close to counting. The only thing that went wrong was he crossed into checkpoint 55 for a total of 3 frames. Had he landed in key checkpoint 4,
you have to hit 4 exactly. Yeah, so you have to hit perfectly. You need to angle that great. That's what I figured.
He had an attempt that looked good, but for some reason the lap didn't count. So what went wrong?
Probably was like slightly.
Every criteria for achieving an ultra shortcut was checked off, but there's a hidden requirement, the 95% rule, where if you skip more than 95% of a lap, the game won't count it when you cross the finish line.
That's an interesting rule.
Ultra skipped so much of the lap
that wasn't discussed a second ago.
The track you could land on that kept you barely outside of 95% completion. So just hitting the requirements isn't a guarantee for success. You need to land in the back
that's crazy. That's rare then. No wonder it took forever for them to get this one.
Would be James's last good oob bounce for a few months, and after evaluating his setup with task tools, he realized there were 6 very precise things that needed to go right for the oob bounce to happen.
It took a few months to realize this. This is the stuff I'm saying, bro.
James became demotivated for the first time in his grind, taking a break until January of 2024.
Sometimes that's what you need, though. Sometimes you need to chill out for a bit, and then eventually
November, he had only gotten about a dozen good bounces. And with his motivation at an all-time low,
I believe because this is a video about it, so clearly they did it. Somebody did it.
Skip. And on the 5th of November, he got his first big bounce.
Somebody went in and taken the glory, yeah?
Once he hit one, he was hooked. And later the same day, he nailed an attempt that saw him hit every requirement except the 95% rule, tying him with James in terms of progression. After one more
now it's a competition.
Big bounce on the 5th, course luck dried up until November 30th when he got another big bounce.
Now it's a competition. This is what it's all about, baby.
Attempt as well. But then, just an hour later, this happened.
Oh my gosh. Did they do it? Did they do it? I heard the oh my god. I love the pop-offs.
Let's go.
I love the pop-offs. I love the pop-offs.
The first person to hit the Retro Desert Hills ultra
shortcut. That's amazing.
But he wouldn't be the last. Motivated by course success, James came back to the track.
James came back. That's what I'm saying. Now there's competition.
And on November 17th, he hit 2 high bounces with
Thank you, Speedrunning community.
Both of these failed from being too far left, and James
motivated though.
Flukes,
motivated though.
4 hours later, he got another high bounce.
They're learning. They're perfecting the craft.
Oh my god, I made it. I made it.
Look how happy they sound, man.
I finally made it.
That's so awesome.
Since he first hit it, James has
like,
had
that
3 more
feels
successful
good.
attempts, and while he wasn't the first to hit the Ultra,
Justin,
he currently holds the world record. This is likely the last Ultra shortcut that humans will ever hit in Mario Kart Wii, as while there are currently 13
Imagine doing that every time.
Ultras, the majority of them use a technique called super grinding, which requires about 30
super grinding sounds so cool.
Second. This means Core is likely the last person on Earth that will ever hit an Ultra shortcut for the first time ever. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next
Did he just say 30 inputs?
Abyssoft Z.
Does Abyssoft know I'm watching? I mean, my main channel is Dragon Ball. What was that all about? Abyssoft Z. Like, hold up. I feel like a pioneer without the Koro eating the rock they're driving. Yes. It's a rock. Boulder. Rock. Boulder. SpongeBob. I don't know. Again, let me just shout out to Abyssoft.